What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for game week 12. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players being moved in and out of people's teams and give you my opinion on whether they are good moves or not. We're also going to catch up with some of the flag players like Gabriel, Semenyo, Enzo, Fernandez, and I give some initial thoughts on what I would do with those players if they're out for game week 12. So let's get into it. So let's start off with Gabriel for Arsenal. Very high owned, currently yellow flagged, went off with an injury during the international break for Brazil, and it does seem like it's a proper injury. Not one of those international break issues where he's absolutely fine for the next match for his club. It does seem like he's a doubt for game week 12. I'm not quite sure exactly what the injury is. I've seen some reports saying it's a thigh problem, some saying it's a groin. Hopefully we'll find out later this week. At the moment, we don't have a time frame. So this is just going to be some early thoughts on what you might want to do with him. Hopefully Arteta will tell us on Friday, or it will come out in the media and stuff like that. So for example, for Šeško, there's stuff that came out last night that said he could be out for up to a month. Hopefully we'll get something similar for Gabriel. Not that he'll be out for a month, but that we get a time frame, basically. So this is just going to be some initial early thoughts on what you might want to do with him. Two things to think about. One, he's the kind of player that you know you will want back. Like, he's just that good. So it's not a case of, well, I could sell him because if I don't buy him back, it's not a huge issue. You'll almost certainly want him back, which means I would be less keen on selling him at all costs. Like, if he's going to be out short term, I'd see if you can think about keeping him in your squad and maybe just muddling through for a few weeks so you don't have to bring him back in. Now, we are at a stage of FPL where, you know, as you get closer to game week 16, you're going to have to use your transfers up because everyone's going to get topped up to 5 in game week 16, but there's always going to be something to do. So earmarking 2 transfers to sell Gabriel just to buy him back, I'd be careful about doing that, especially if you've got other problems you can deal with, first of all. And I suspect a lot of people's squads for game week 12 look quite good. So if you could get through game week 12 without having to sell him, that could be quite nice. Unless, of course, it turns around or turns out that he's going to be out for a month. The other thing to keep in mind is we're coming up to a midweek game week in game week 14. So all of a sudden, if a player's going to miss like a week or two, that could be 2, 3, 4 game weeks because of how quickly they come around. So this Saturday, you've got game week 12 deadline. The following Saturday, it's game week 13, but game week 14 is on the Tuesday. So the reason to keep that in mind is if it comes out that Gabriel is going to probably miss the Spurs game but could be back after that, that's probably fine. But if he's also going to be a doubt for the Chelsea game, just keep in mind the game week 14 match against Brentford is only a couple of days afterwards. So if he's a doubt for Chelsea, that would make me quite worried that he'd also be a doubt for game week 14, and maybe they'll just save him until game week 15 to give him a proper break. So I think that's what we need to listen out for. If it comes out that probably not going to play Spurs, could be back for Chelsea, I'd be really tempted to keep hold of him and just try and get through game week 12 and then just reassess later on. Because again, you know you're going to want him back. If he's a doubt for Spurs, he's probably a doubt for Chelsea as well. Could be back for Brentford. That's maybe 3 game weeks you're going to miss them. So whether you sell him at that point will really depend on how strong your squad is. I think for most people, if he's going to miss 3 or 4 game weeks, you can probably look to sell. And I'll come on to replacements in just a second. If it's just going to be 1, possibly 2, I'd really think about trying to keep hold of him, especially if you've still got your free hit left. Now, maybe I'm just being a little bit biased because this is my plan, but let's say he's going to miss 12, maybe 13. Bench him for 12, free hit 13, hopefully have him back for 14. The only problem with that plan is the fact that game week 14 is midweek. That's why the timeline on Gabriel is so important. But because he's so good and you will want him back, I can't see any scenario where people sell Gabriel and they just won't want to buy him back. Like, where's that money going to go that's so important that you don't need him? Like, he's clearly the best Arsenal defender. And it doesn't mean that Timber or Calafiori, who also, by the way, has got a bit of a knock from the break apparently, doesn't mean they can't outscore him, but the money would be on Gabriel. Right? He's just so good for DEFCON, so good for bonus as well, and he's got his own goal threat too. So that's where I'm at right now. If it's only Spurs he's going to miss, I would try and keep hold of him if you can. If it's going to be 3 or 4 game weeks, I think there's a case to get rid of him, but it's going to depend on your squad. You know, some of you might have built a squad where you haven't really got a good bench, you need to sell him, then you'll buy him back later. That's obviously fine. But if you've got a strong squad, there is much more of a case to keep hold of him. But let's talk about replacements if it ends up that we need to sell him. So if people do end up selling Gabriel, I think there's 3 teams they'll primarily be focused on. So one is Liverpool. For me, it's pretty much got to be Van Dijk that you buy. I don't hate Konate. He's obviously cheaper. He does have some defensive contributions, and it's not like he has zero goal threat. But the main target from set pieces is always Van Dijk. He's also better for defcons. And I think it's a big if, but if Slot does make a change at centre-back at any point just to rest someone, it's not going to be Van Dijk that misses out. It's going to be Konate. And that's not me saying that he will be rotated, but if it's going to happen, it will be him. I just think Van Dijk's worth the extra 0.5. And if you're selling Gabriel, you've got that money. I would definitely spend it on Van Dijk over Konate if you're looking at Liverpool. For Arsenal, it's pretty much Timber or Saliba for me. Calafiori is obviously not a terrible pick, and his goal threat from open play is actually quite nice, but he's also flagged from the international break, and I just have a little bit more confidence in Timber's minutes over Calafiori. They're both first choice pretty clearly, but I think if one was to be rested, it's more likely to be Calafiori than it is Timber, so that's why I would discount him. Obviously, if Gabriel does miss out for a few games, someone else will have to come in instead, probably because he's left-footed, it would be Nketiah, but Mosquera could play there as well. I just think unless Gabriel was out for like a month or more, I wouldn't bother going for his replacement. Because there is a chance that if you do Gabriel to Timber, you just keep Timber for quite a while. You don't necessarily... Like, obviously, I've said that you want Gabriel back, and of course you will, but there is scenarios where you just get stuck with the play that you bring in. Whereas if you go for like Nketiah or Mosquera because you think they're going to play instead, you'll definitely be forced into selling them once Gabriel's back. So I think for that reason, I wouldn't look at them as options, to be honest, unless Gabriel's going to be out for a while. And even then, I don't think anyone can for 100% say who will always play centre-back alongside Saliba. And then you got Crystal Palace. So Munoz went up last night to 5.8. And if you want to go cheaper, you got someone like Lequire at 5 million. I've not included Richards because I'm going to talk about cheaper defenders in a second. And I've not included Gay because he's currently flagged as well. And a doubt for Game Week 12. And ultimately, he's more expensive than Lequire now. And I'm not sure it's worth paying the extra 0.1. Where would I go if I was selling Gabriel to one of these? I think the instinct is to go for Van Dijk because the fixtures are so good. Forest at home, West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Leeds away, Brighton at home, next 5. And you know he'll definitely start. But honestly, I don't think that Arsenal's defence gets much worse without Gabriel. It's a weird one because you could definitely argue he's their best defender at the moment, like better than Saliba. But the Arsenal defensive unit as a whole is so good. I would still expect them to keep clean sheets in most of these games. And obviously Timber is a little bit more definitely more attacking from open play than someone like Van Dijk. The only thing I think Timber will play probably all the games. But I can't get out of my head that at some point, maybe with a midweek fixture, could he get rested? Could he bring in Ben White for Brentford at home instead of playing Timber in that midweek? Possibly. We've already seen Calafiori and Timber be rested in the Champions League. Was that because it was midweek or was it because it was Champions League? I suspect it's because it's Champions League. And Arteta will keep rolling out his main back four for as many Premier League games as he can. But you've got to be so confident in that. If you've got any doubts about Timber's minutes, I think you should just buy Van Dijk instead. Basically. I think he probably will play all these matches of the next 6. But it's hard to be 100% sure about that. Saliba obviously will as well. Right? I mean, he could get rested for Mosquera or someone at some point. But I think Saliba will pretty much play every game as well. He's just so boring as a pick. He doesn't really have defensive contributions. And yes, he's got some goal threat. Like we've seen him get a couple of goals last year, but he's not Gabriel. Although if Gabriel's out, someone else has to take up the mantle of being the main threat. It could be Saliba. That happened last year. Gabriel got injured and Saliba scored a couple of goals. I think it was in 2 game weeks in a row because I owned him for those. So he's fine. He's just quite boring. I think I would just go Van Dijk over Saliba. So if you're going to go Arsenal, I like Timber. If you're not confident in his minutes, you go Van Dijk, I think, over Saliba. It's probably where I'm at right now. Crystal Palace, if you don't already own them, Wolves away is good. Man United at home's not bad. Burnley away in 14 is good as well. The fixtures, there is 4 away games in the next 6. Now, 2 of them are Wolves and Burnley, which is fine. But then it's Fulham and Leeds further on. And one of the home games in 16 is Man City. So longer term, I'm not convinced their fixtures are actually amazing. But Munoz is so attacking from basically right wing, essentially, is what position he plays. And the next few fixtures are quite nice as well. So if you don't want to go Liverpool, you don't want to go Arsenal, Munoz is probably where my next kind of pick would go. I don't think he's, I don't know. I mean, he could probably score against Wolves, and all of a sudden I think, actually, do you know what? That's another nice reminder about how attacking he is. Maybe he is just better than Arsenal and Liverpool defenders, but I'm pretty sure if I was going from Gabriel, I'd move to Van Dijk or Timber will be the main two. Then Munoz would kind of be next on the list because, like I said, he just plays that right wing role so well, and the next few fixtures are good. Also consider when you might play your free hit, because obviously if you're going to free hit 13, then it makes Arsenal defenders a little bit better because you missed the Chelsea away game. So definitely worth considering. If you want to go a bit cheaper, obviously you've got Richards from Crystal Palace. I would definitely look at him. You've got, let me just go to Bournemouth here. You've got Senesi for, what is he now? 5 million. And if you want to go even cheaper, you've got Troffer at 4.5. And they're quite playable in the next 3 games. So West Ham at home, Sunderland away, Everton at home. Then it's Chelsea and Man United, not quite so good. But then it's Burnley at home in 17. So I definitely like Bournemouth defenders still. I've got Senesi. I mean, I won't go into my specific transfers now, but if Gabriel was out for a while, I'm actually a little bit tempted to go Truffair. I should really learn how to say that properly. And go double Bournemouth for a couple of weeks. And that would fund a big upgrade on Paquetá. So I quite like him at 4.5. You've got Michael Keane as well. The only thing about that is the next few fixtures aren't great. Man United away, Newcastle at home, Bournemouth away. And even then, right, Forest at home in 15 is good, but then it's Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. So I think from game week 18 onwards, people will be looking at Everton defenders, but I'm not sure right now is the right time to bring Keane in. You've got Joachim Andersen. Sunderland at home this week is quite nice. And then 15, 16, 17 and 18, you could play him in any of those games, really, if you needed to. And I think that's about it. I mean, De Ligt at Man United, I mean, their fixtures are quite good. Everton at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, and then Bournemouth at home. So apart from Palace away in the next 5, they're quite nice. He's good for DEFCONs. He seems to be nailed. The goal threat's good as well. I just don't trust Man United defence. I probably will look at De Ligt. I've actually already looked at it because the longer term fixtures are quite good for Man United as well. I'm just not sure I can bring myself to buy a Man United defender. I'm sure there's another cheap. I think I've covered all the cheap defenders. Bournemouth, Anderson, Richards. I think that's about it. I don't think there's really anyone else. Like Aston Villa, Leeds away, Wolves at home. It's okay, but I'm not sure I'd buy Matty Cash. Oh, O'Reilly, sorry. That's the one that everyone's looking at right now, 5 million. It's just whether you trust the minutes. With 8 Nouri there, I just don't think I could bring myself to buy him. But that game week 13 fixture is 3 o'clock, and that is one of the first kickoffs that week. So maybe we get a leak, and if he starts, you bring him in. But I just don't like buying players you've got to rely on leaks for. So I think if you're gonna keep the money up, Van Dijk, Timber, Munoz. If you're gonna go a bit cheaper, I mean, you've got a pick. You got your whole pick of options. Depends when you need them for. But Bournemouth definitely worth looking at, and Joachim Andersen, especially if you can bench him after game week 12 for a couple of weeks. If you're coming back from the international break, not quite sure what transfers to make, you can get yourself a recommendation from the AI suggested transfers over on Fantasy Football Hub. So I've got my team in the My Team tool on the app, but you can use the website as well. And when you're on there, you just click AI transfers and it will suggest what moves to make. It doesn't mean you have to do those moves, but it might give you something that you've not already thought about. So hopefully it's going to come up with something good for me. So it wants me to use both of my 2 free transfers to do Paquetá to Szoboszlai, which is quite interesting because I was going to include Szoboszlai in this video, but I took him out. He's on 4 yellow cards, which is not ideal, but the fixtures are great, and he's going to play 90 minutes, so I don't hate that move. And that's funded by doing Lacroix to Richards, so keeping that Crystal Palace player. If I want to maybe make that move, but I don't want to bring in Chris Richards or I don't want to sell Lacroix, I can click Don't Sell and then ask it to recommend me a new transfer as well. So there's loads of different ways you can play around with this tool. There's a ton of other ones on Fantasy Football Hub as well. If you want to get signed up and use that, link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. So let's go back to Arsenal and talk about Eze next. I think anyone that picked him up when Odegaard got injured has probably been a little bit frustrated with the lack of returns recently. I think it's only 1 goal in his last 4 game weeks, which isn't ideal, especially when the minutes have been pretty good. I think with him, if you're going into game week 12 and you want to sell him, I think that's probably fine in most cases, especially if it's for someone like Mbeumo, because you can just put him in and leave him there into African Cup of Nations. So that's a good move, right? But even if you're selling him to someone else, it's also probably fine if you've got nothing else to do. We've got to start using our transfers up anyway. And if you've got no injury suspensions to deal with, happy days. If you're looking at your team thinking, I could kind of do with holding on to him for 1 more week, or I just want to hold on to him for 1 more week, I also think that's absolutely fine. I think he'll probably start. I don't think there's any reason to suggest that won't happen. Even if Odegaard is available, it seems unlikely that Arteta would just throw him straight back in when he can use Eze instead. And Spurs at home, I think, is a pretty good fixture. I'm not sure if I'm just being a little bit too down on Spurs, because I know Thomas Frank is there, they can set up defensively, etc. But I could easily see Arsenal scoring like 2 or 3 goals in this game. They're just so strong, especially at home. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a cagey affair. Maybe I've got it completely incorrect. But I think Arsenal will do well in this game. And therefore, if you've got an attacker that's likely to start, which Eze will, in my opinion, there's every reason to hold on to him. Longer term, he's a definite problem. I've said that for a while now because Odegaard can play centrally, Trossard, Martinelli, etc. can play on the left. It's not a guarantee that Eze plays every game. But for Spurs at home, it's fine. So it is one of those situations where if you want to hold on to him, I quite like it, to be honest. But if you need to get rid of him or you've got a spare transfer, that's also fine. Absolutely. Because longer term, he's not going to be a pick, I don't think. So Semenyo, like Gabriel, has also come back from the international break with a flag. So he is a doubt going into game week 12. Although for what it's worth, I suspect Semenyo will be absolutely fine. And if he is, then I just go back to what I said last week. I would hold on to him because it's West Ham at home. And if you have to play him for Sunderland away and Everton at home in 13 and 14, it's really not the end of the world. So if he's fine, I would keep hold of him. Let's just pretend that Iriola tells us he's a doubt for game week 12 or that he's going to miss out. What do you do then? I'd be quite tempted to sell him if you've got the spare transfer. I probably wouldn't do it for a hit, especially if your squad is looking good. But if he's going to miss game week 12 and you can afford to sell him, then I would consider it because he is good for Sunderland away, Everton at home, but not essential. Then it's Chelsea at home, Man United away, which again is okay, but not amazing. We know his output is dip. He's probably going to lose penalties, especially when Kluivert's on the pitch. And honestly, his underlying numbers are fine, but they're nothing to get excited about. 0.28 expected goals per 90. He's definitely overperformed this season. And obviously that output has slowed down. So I would consider selling him if he's going to miss game week 12, because I think at his price point, especially if he jumped on late, you're quite close to going to someone like Mbeumo at Man United. So if Semenyo's going to miss 12 and you can get to Mbeumo, that to me feels like a pretty good option. The other player to consider if you want to target Man United's fixtures is maybe Cunha. Now, let me just clarify here. I absolutely think that Mbeumo is the better option. If you can afford it, you should definitely go there. But there are reports going around that Šeško is going to be out for up to a month. That starts to take you to about game weeks 15, 16. So in the meantime, Cunha's minutes should be pretty good. Now, in the last match against Spurs, he got subbed at 71. There's an 81-minute sub in game week 9. He was benched in game week 7. But generally, his minutes have been okay. Without Šeško, you would think that Cunha's going to spend the majority of his time playing number 9. Now, there are scenarios where it doesn't happen, but that would basically, for Cunha to not play with Šeško injured, it would require Xerxes number 9 and Mason Mount number 10. And also Mason Mount staying fit for a while as well. So if Šeško is definitely out for a month, or up to a month, I think Cunha will play quite a lot. Now, his underlying numbers not as good as Mbeumo. He's not as good a pick as Mbeumo, but his minutes should be good for now. And then when Mbeumo goes to AFCON, Cunha's minutes will continue to be good. So as a longer-term pick, with the Man United's fixtures are just quite good for a while. Everton at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Wolves at home, Leeds away. Like, potentially you could keep Cunha for that whole run. Is there a slight risk he could get benched at some point? Yes. Could he get subbed early? Also, yes. But I think with a Šeško injury and then Mbeumo and Amag going to AFCON, the minutes should be pretty good the whole way through. And he's not shown it properly at Man United so far, but we know there's a better player in there. So, again, not as good as Mbeumo, but maybe an alternative. For example, right? I know I said I wasn't going to talk about my team, but I'll quickly do it now. If I wanted to go Paquetá to Mbeumo, let's say Gabriel was out for a while, I'd have to go down to a 4.1 million defender, which is fine, but anyone from Leeds, Sunderland, Burnley, the fixture's just not great. There's not really any game weeks where I'd want to play them. And it's not a huge problem because my other 4 defenders are pretty good. But ideally, I would rather go to a 4.5 that I wouldn't mind playing, like Truffert or Keane or someone like that. But I can't afford Mbeumo. So then I would have to go Cunha instead. So that's why I'm personally looking at him. But if you can afford it, obviously Mbeumo was the one. Anyway, that was a bit of a sidetrack. Semenyo is probably going to be fine, in which case, playing for West Ham at home. So let's talk about Bukayo Saka next. And I think he's a really interesting discussion for FPL right now, because before the Sunderland game in game week 11, there was more people selling him than were buying him. He goes and hits a 12-pointer, and you'd think that the amount of transfers in would be quite high. But they're actually not. There's not that many people buying him. Like, on the list of midfielders being brought this week, he's in, what is that, 7th place? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8th place with 69,000 transfers in almost. But I've just checked, and he's being sold by nearly 30,000. So, in terms of net transfers in, it's not actually that big for Saka, and he's almost quite a big differential right now. The midfielders being brought ahead of him are Sarr, Szoboszlai, Xhaka, Caicedo, Rice, Doku, and Mbeumo. And look, some of those picks are pretty good, so I'm not suggesting that everyone should be rushing out and buying Saka. But what I am trying to say is he's a bit of a differential. Going into a run of Spurs at home, Chelsea away, again, some of you might be free hitting, then Brentford at home, Villa away, and Wolves at home. And if you are looking to potentially go against Haaland for any of these upcoming away games that he has, and you don't want to buy Salah because he's so expensive, Saka is a nice alternative. In 12, 14 and 16, I've spoken about this before, Haaland has Newcastle away, Fulham away and Palace away. And if you want to captain him in all of those games, that's probably quite a nice choice because the guy is pretty damn good. It's a ridiculous amount of goals he's already scored this season in all competitions for club and country. But if you do want to go against him, it's going to be one of those away games because doing it at home is really tough. And in 12, 14, 16, Saka's got Spurs at home, Brentford at home, Wolves at home. So he's a nice alternative. I think ultimately there's two reasons he's not being heavily brought. One, because he just hasn't done many points recently, apart from the Sunderland game. And two, I think people are probably in a structure where it's not that easy to get him. And even if it is, you can get Mbeumo for 1.6 million less. And so you've got more money to spend elsewhere. And I completely get that. And Mbeumo probably is captainable in some of the fixtures that Man United have got if you want to go that way. But I just think we know the pedigree of... we know it from Mbeumo as well, of course, but we know how good Saka can be. And just because he hasn't done many points recently doesn't mean he's incapable of doing that going forward. Like, he is Arsenal's best attacker. He's going to be involved. Like, at some point, he's going to get... Like, he hasn't got any assists so far this season. He's underperforming in that regard. He's slightly overperforming on his goals. But I just think overall there's more to come from him. Like, it's more likely his output goes up than down, is basically what I'm trying to say. And if you want a differential, especially a differential captain that's on penalties, especially if Gyökeres is out again for game week 12, which hopefully we'll find out this week, I think he's a solid pick. And you can hold him all the way through till game week 16. But it's just a weird situation, FPL, where he's just not essential. Like, by no means is he essential, because you can always captain Haaland and you can pick up players like Mbeumo for cheaper. So it really depends on what your structure looks like. And I'll tell you, as a Saka owner, actually, if you want a bit of confirmation bias to not buy him, I know, unless Gabriel's out for a while, I'm not going to want to sell him. I'm actually going to get a bit stuck for where to get money from soon. And I will constantly be looking at Saka and Bruno as the options to do it. And we know it's not going to be Bruno. So maybe later on I do sell Saka. But I just think game week 16 in particular, I'm going to captain Saka this week. I'm not sure about 14. And I'm going to do it in 16 if I own him. Like, I'm going to go against Haaland. No one else is going to want to do it. And not only is Saka going to be a massive differential captain, he's also just super low owned anyway. So it's like you're doubling down on the differential status. So yeah, if you're thinking about getting him, I wanted to talk about him and say I think he's a pretty good pick. But yeah, far from essential at this point in time. So Nick Woltemade at Newcastle is another one of those players that I think is a bit frustrating for owners at the moment. He went through that period of 3 goals in 3 game weeks, but since then it's 1 assist in the last 3. And that includes a halftime substitution as well. It's also coincided with Thiago absolutely smashing it, Mateta looking like a good pick. Even João Pedro's done the business for the last couple of games. So people are looking to sell Woltemade. At the moment, until Visser is back, we know Woltemade's minutes are going to be good. And until Gordon's back, we know Woltemade's going to be on penalties as well. So from that point of view, I definitely don't see him as a absolute must sell. I wouldn't be selling him for a hit or anything like that, no matter how frustrated you are. He's perfectly okay to keep. Yes, Man City at home in game week 12 is not amazing, but at least they're the home team. Then it's Everton away, Spurs at home, Burnley at home, which isn't terrible. So he's not a must-sell at all costs. But I will say this. If you've got the spare transfer and you're looking at the next few weeks, I've got nothing to use my moves on, I need to get them used before game week 16, I really don't hate selling Woltemade. I think maybe he was a little bit overhyped because of the amount of goals he scored straight away, and that output's come down. I mean, he's at 0.31 non-penalty expected goals per 90. It's fine, but it's not better than Thiago, who's full-time on penalties and cheaper. I think he's fine to sell, because even when you get to like game week 15, Burnley at home is good, and obviously if you get to that week with Woltemade in your team, you're not going to sell him. But it's not like Newcastle never really have a sustained run of great fixtures, I would say. Like, there's some okay ones in there, but they're always mixed with some not so good ones. So, Man City at home, not great. Everton's fine, but it's away. Okay, Spurs at home, Burnley at home, pretty good. Sunderland away, it's okay, but not as good as we thought it would be a few weeks ago. Chelsea at home, not great. Man United, okay, it's not bad, but again, like Everton, you're playing them away from home. Then Burnley away is good, the reverse of the game week 15 fixture. And then you do have not a bad run. Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away, Villa at home. Liverpool away, not great, but then it's Brentford at home. So I would say from game week 19, the fixtures are quite nice. Before that, I don't know, they're fine, but nothing more than just fine. So I don't see, like I said, I don't see Woltemade as this massive problem, like maybe some people do, especially if they own him. But I think if you've got the chance to get rid of him this week, it's not the worst exit point. So Enzo Fernandez is still flagged going into game week 12, so he's a doubt for Burnley away, which isn't ideal. He pulled out of international duty with Argentina during the break. Apparently, I think he said he's had a knee problem for like 4 months. So they've obviously been able to manage him through it, but they don't want him playing additional games unless he absolutely has to, would be my guess, because he's averaged 88 minutes per start in the league. So it hasn't been a problem once he's in the lineup. But Maresca has mentioned that he's not training properly alongside like Caicedo, João Pedro, etc. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. I would say this, though, if you're an owner, if there's any doubts going into game week 12, I would probably sell him. Because he's basically already missed a game. So it's not a case of, it's one of those international break injuries, he'll be absolutely fine. He didn't play against Forest in game week 8. So if they have to take him out of the team, they will do that. So I think if he's a doubt for game week 12 and you've got a spare move, you can get someone that you want for the long term, I would probably do it. Because after game week 12, I don't think he's a great long-term choice anyway. Arsenal at home, Leeds away, Bournemouth away, Everton at home, Newcastle away. And it's one of those situations, like after Newcastle, where each individual game is not awful. Like if you had to play him against Leeds away, it's fine. If you had to play him against Bournemouth away, it's fine. But as a fixture on 13 to 17, it's not that great. And also, if Palmer's going to be back soon, he's going to take over penalty duty. You lose that from Enzo Fernandez. And if Palmer's back, there's less chance of Enzo playing number 10. And I know when he plays that number 8 role, he still gets forward, right? He's got Caicedo next to him. He's never going to have to do a huge amount of defensive work, but you still want him playing further forward, right? So I think after 12, most people are going to be looking to get rid of Enzo anyway. So if there's any doubts going into 12, given that we've already seen him miss a game, I'd probably get rid of him. And there is pretty much zero chance that I would buy him right now. Like, you could make an argument to buy him this week, free hit 13, and then have him for 14, but I don't know, it just feels like a rubbish transfer. Like, if you've not got Enzo or Sarr, I would just buy Sarr instead. That feels pretty straightforward to me. So that's some thoughts on Enzo Fernandez. I mean, with a lot of this stuff, obviously there's still doubts because it's only Tuesday. We'll find out more over the course of this week. I'll do final thoughts on Friday with all the press conference news. So I'll give an update then. But it's always nice to just get some thoughts out about what you might want to do with players, depending on how long they're out for, etc. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, check out Fantasy Football Hub using the links in the description below, and I'll catch you again soon.